Hey everybody, Will here again with Happily Ever Outdoors. Today I wanted to show you the Sparkwheel from Ultimate Survival Technologies. Now this is part of their Micro Survival series. So this is going to be a super compact, super packable fire starter for emergency type situations. Now before we get too far into this, I just want to let you guys know that I am currently a brand ambassador for Ultimate Survival Technologies. So that means they send me out free gear to test and review. However, they don't attempt to influence my opinions. So this product is not actually one that they sent to me for free. This is one I actually purchased with my own funds. I'll let you know right now because I thought it seemed like a really cool, really nifty little product that would be perfect to throw in a little emergency kit, and so I went ahead and I grabbed it. So we're going to take a look at it today. Alright, so as you can see right off the bat, it comes in a handy little plastic tube, and this is super compact. I'm going to see if I can show you that in the palm of my hand. Very, very small, and it weighs next to nothing. And this has everything you need to run this fire starter. Now I'm going to take this thing out, and you can see this is the whole thing right here. So this is very small, very compact, and the way this thing works is off this wheel right here. You can see that spark. Think like a Bic lighter, right? Exact same principle, only this wheel is just a little bit bigger, a little more oversized what you would get from a Bic lighter. What you have inside here at the base of the wheel is a small striker, like a pin almost, that sits inside there. And in order to service this thing, because that pin will wear out, you're just going to unscrew this end cap, which has a nice slit cut in it, so you could open it with a screwdriver or just with like your pocket knife or whatever to get it open. It also has little cuts into the side so you can get a grip on it. So once you get it opened up that first time, I think I had to crack it open with a knife the first time because it was pretty tight. After that, I'm just able to unscrew it by hand. Be careful when you open this up because it is spring loaded. So you can see the spring right there. There's the cap that it sits in, and when you pull the spring out, there's also going to be a little pin that sits in at the bottom. So watch out for that. See, that pin didn't come out with the spring. So since that pin didn't come out with the spring, I'm just going to tip this upside down very carefully. You can see that little itty bitty pin, and that's what sits inside that spring. And then you have your striking rod right there. So this is very small, very compact. So be careful if you're servicing this thing out in the woods that you sit down and you take your time doing it. So if I want to put it back together, I'm just going to drop that pin back inside there, and then I'm going to take my spring. Make sure you put that end piece in there. I forget what they call it, but basically it sits inside the spring, and then it's a cap that just gives you a flat part there that'll push down on that pin. So you drop that back down in there, the cap sits inside there, and you're going to push down and just screw that back together. So once again, very careful, small pieces, and everything is spring loaded, so you don't want to lose any pieces of that. By the way, it comes with, I believe, 3 extra little striking rods in the tube. So be mindful of that when you are opening this thing up, that you don't dump them out. It does have some instructions you can see that are folded inside there also. They just kind of give you the basics of how to service it in case you forget how to do it, as well as how you'll want to utilize this fire starter. Now there are 2 basic ways that you can use this fire starter. One would be to hold it in your hand and spin the wheel much like you would with a lighter. So this could work well if you're working with something like a tinder bundle. You know, you could put that inside there and hold it and light it like that. Your other option is going to be to roll the wheel. In order to do that, you're going to need a hard, relatively flat surface. So if you're outdoors, there's a good chance you may have to find yourself a flat rock or something like that that you can start it on. Now, if you're working with very small tinder, you might imagine you're not going to want to roll that wheel straight at it, because then you have that chance of disrupting the pile of tinder that you have. How you're actually going to want to utilize it is to pile up your fire starting material beside it, and then you'll run your wheel beside that material to get your spark. So we're going to try it both ways. We're just going to use dry grass. I'm not going to use any kind of artificial materials, fire starters, accelerants, any cotton-based products, dryer lint, anything like that, because I want to test if you were in an emergency situation where you were lost out in the woods, would you be able to realistically start a fire with this small little fire starter? Alright, first let's try with just a small bundle of dry grass, and I'm going to see if I can get this to light with the thumb spin method. Alright, so it was a little bit challenging. You definitely have to look at your bundle of grass and find a really small kind of wispy part of grass that's going to light easy. It's got to be dry, and you're going to have to get that spark going over and over and over. And what I was doing was blowing a little bit on it as I was doing that, and just to help kind of nurse that spark. So you could see it took me a little bit to get it, but I was able to get that grass burning just using the thumb spin method. By the way, one of the things you're going to want to pay attention to, there's actually an arrow cut into the side of the wheel. It's only printed on the one side, but you're going to need to spin the wheel that direction in order to get a spark. So I was having some issues where I had it flipped around the wrong way, so make sure you pay attention to that. Alright, so back to what we're doing. This way is definitely proving to be more difficult, which is ironic because I expected it to be easier. Well guys, I am just not having any luck trying to get this started using the wheel, running the wheel method like they were talking about. I'm sure it comes down to, maybe if it was a little more ideal conditions, a little more ideal tinder, it would start right up. So maybe if you had some kind of, pre-made tinder that was with this. But in terms of the materials that I'm trying to use, as far as just natural, just grass, dry grass, you saw I was able to get it started using the thumb spin method once, but using the wheel spin method, haven't been able to get it to start at all. Okay guys, so my overall thoughts on the UST Sparkwheel. It's cool in the fact that it's super small. Obviously, that's the first selling point on it. I think it's really well constructed. I mean, it feels like indestructible. And it works. It throws sparks out. But this is definitely, I wouldn't count on it in less than ideal conditions. Definitely wet weather. Unless you had a really good spot with some dry tinder and stuff to work with, or a really wet environment, you would be out of luck, because it's just, you can't throw enough sparks out with it. It's just not big enough. using the roll method like they suggested, I think if you were in ideal conditions, like maybe if you were in like an urban environment where you had you know, really flat area to work with, like concrete or something like that, or even if I was somewhere where there was really large you know, flat rock or something like that, where you really had a lot of surface area to work with, you probably could make that work. But when you're working with little stuff like I was working with, I think using that that thumb wheel method of just spinning it works better. One thing, this can get a little gummed up with grass and dirt and stuff, so try not to let that get too dirty, because I had the wheel stick on me a few times, like you just saw a second ago there. I had to kind of unstick it because there's a little bit of something stuck in there. So if I had access to really good tinder, like say I had some, you know, super dry, fluffy, like cotton-based tinder, or you know, some kind of accelerant or something like that, you know, I feel pretty confident that you could get something started pretty easy with this, because you get a spark. But when you're just working with raw materials like this, it's a little bit trickier. So I wouldn't make this obviously my #1 go-to. This would be great as like a emergency backup. Like I said, for if you're doing like a micro survival kit, maybe you like to keep a little micro survival kit in the, you know, glove box of your car or something, and you might already have a Bic lighter in there in your kit. You might throw this in there along with it in case you go to pull that Bic lighter out and it's dry, or you know, you need your kit and you take it out in the woods or something, your car is broken down or something, you know, and you lose it or break it or whatever, just as a emergency backup. So obviously not practical for like everyday use for fire starting. It's too much of a hassle. You'd want something bigger. But for like an emergency kit, it would be great for something like that, because you know this can sit stored forever and it's not going to go bad like a disposable lighter could. So overall, it's a well built and it's a functional product, but it certainly has its limitations, and it wouldn't be my first go-to. Okay guys, this concludes my review of the Sparkwheel from Ultimate Survival Technologies. Feel free to leave your comments and questions below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to look us up on Facebook, Twitter, and our blog.